What up folks, Derek here with benDy Tubes, and this is the Quamen finale. The other brothers from the Quamen mother. I'm gonna try and stick to the script and keep this thing moving forward. So, like I said, 96 birthed the Clad G1. In 2013, it wrapped with the Clad G9. Around 2001, 5 years into the Quamen tenure, they also made the Bulls. This looked like, and say it with me, a Quamen, and more specifically a Clad. The big detail change here is that they went to a 19.15 top tube versus 18.75. Another sick frame, not a lot of reference or knowledge on my part, so I knew it existed. Here's pictures of it. Also, I should note that reference to the Reddit subpage that showed all the different generations, the G3 and the Bulls 1 had the same dropouts. Also, this picture here shows a G4 and Bulls 2. Only one bike that I can find that calls itself a Bulls 2, so I assumed that it existed, and we'll leave it at that. Now, the Clad persisted for a couple years. In 2005, we got the Delta 1. Hiro Murasaki's signature bike. This thing was another Quamen that looked like a Quamen, and you could tell it was a Quamen from across the roller hockey rink. Big changes, the down tube intersected the head tube above the top tube, and the top tube did not intersect the head tube at all, like I mentioned with the Clad G6. So that was a first for the company. Like I said, not sure which did it first or they did it at the same time, but really cool detail that persisted throughout the design language. And the only thing that intersected besides the down tube was an extra big gusset. Other sexy details, those pierced top tubes the pierced tubes got dropped because the tube diameter shrank and wasn't warranted. Also, Euro bottom bracket, 18.85 top tube, stuff like that. The D1 Delta was freaking fire. In 2006, in addition to the G6, the Delta got its second generation, and ooh, buddy, this thing was excellent. It lost some weight, it got shorter, 18.85 down to an 18.2 top tube with a 74-degree head tube angle. They did something really wild. They offset the bottom bracket forward a ½ inch. This allowed the wheelbase to shrink, but the top tube and chainstay ratios to remain the same. Such a dope detail. Nobody ever did that before. I don't know if people still do it. And the other thing was this stardust black color was just an absolute thing of beauty. The standover height shrank, the intersections, the Delta 2 is nearly a perfect flatland frame of that generation. Now, if the G6 and the Delta 2 weren't enough, Quamen also made a run of 50 of the Gamma. Longer than the Delta and the Clad, that top tube hit the down tube a little bit further back, giving the Gamma an even lower step over height at the head tube area. 19-inch top tube, 74-degree head tube angle, all that weighing in at a staggeringly low 3.9 pounds. Now, this used the same large set that I mentioned before, but smaller tubes, offset Euro bottom bracket, and literally the most machined dropouts in BMX history. Now, here's the question. Someone was slinging an amazing collection of Quamen Clads and Deltas and stuff like that on Facebook. And they had this beautiful Quamen Gamma that was purple. Obviously a Gamma, we're gonna call it a Gamma. But they also had this. And look at that head tube area, like gussets, like, I don't know what's going on. Same offset bottom bracket, same machine dropouts, but that headset or the head tube area looked like the Gamma and the KHEA dam had a little baby, and this is what we got. So not sure what's going on up here. Let me know if you know. So in 07, of course, they dropped the Delta 3, an absolute banger of a follow-up to the Delta 2. I had one of these, it was so short. It was too short. 18.3 top tube, 74-degree head tube angle, 12.75 dropouts, offset bottom bracket. The one thing that really got me was like, though the wheelbase shrank and the top tube stayed the same and the chainstay stayed the same, it brought everything forward. So I hit my toe on the pedal on the tire all the time coming out of tricks, constantly. But it was a sick frame. And like many of you that I've read in the comments, I sold it. I hate that I sold it. I wish I still had it because it's an amazing frame, but it's gone. Somebody else is riding it. It was the blue one. It's actually the picture in my first video. So I missed that bike. And as I'm researching this, I'm not sure if I was actually running those Pops chain tensioners right. I think I was running a 14 millimeter KHE Geisha 48 spoke hub. So with the 3/8 Pops tensioners, I wasn't able to put those on the inside. And that was my whole thing with the Delta. I always felt like I struggled in dialing in the rear end. So I'm embarrassed that I can't confirm this, but the maths and the equations make sense that I just sucked at working on bikes back then. Now, in 08, the G8 was a thing, and so was the Delta 4. And one other thing, the Cypher dropped. Now, the Delta 4 did the same thing as the G8 and opened up a little baby gap in the front end between those gussets and down tubes. Offset the same 1/2 inch on the bottom bracket and grew a little bit, 18.4 versus that 18.2 top tube. Weight dropped to a super scant 3.75 pounds. So it was super small, super light, just super sick. Also, Delta 4 got rid of that lard set. So, you know, I should call out that this was the end of the Delta line. They went 1 through 4, ended with this 4 in 08. Second longest running model for Quamen and a piece of art for sure. But next, as I mentioned, the Cypher dropped in 08 too. And this is really the first look at Quamen's new school design language. The tubes were straight, but they were super tiny. I don't know the diameter, but just look at them. They're scant. You know, it did have that offset bottom bracket, but it added a little gusset a la GT Show down there on the bottom end. So straight tubes, offset, tiny geometry. You could get options like 18.5, 19 and 19 inch top tube, 74.5 degree head tube angle, 12.75 chainstay. So the Cypher, again, was super light, 3.5 pounds, and really good looking. Like this is a pretty sick frame. Definitely that time between mid school and new school yet to be named, unless we just want to call it new school. So that was 08. 09 and 10, they dropped a few street frames that are quickly pictured here. But really, in 2010, they came back and made a hybrid of the Bowls. We're gonna call it the V3, maybe V2, we'll call it V3. Straight tubes, 19.2 top tube, Flatline Fuel sold it for a bit, so I know it existed. And according to this BMX Museum post, this one has traded hands a few times and maybe was owned by James McGraw. Kind of cool. So to wrap this thing up, in 2013, Quamen dropped another Cypher. Same as the previous one, the only thing, they dropped that gusset down at the bottom bracket, and that's it. Cypher's Audi 5000. And that's Quamen. Clad, Delta, Gamma, Bowls, Cypher, amazing. All those bits, the bars, the pegs, just really iconic. Sad news, Zinta passed away after a battle with cancer. So rest in peace, Zinta. You made an absolutely profound and incredible impact on mid-school flatland BMX. And that's it. Quamen, like I said, y'all did the thing. So as always, Derek, benDy Tubes, Dunzo.